got you interested in working in government?
Well, I think that's the story of every Tibetan born in exile. That once you're born, you're told that you are a Tibetan, hence you have a responsibility as a Tibetan. So you have to do something for your exile government or for your freedom movement. So for me, I wasn't particularly interested in politics for sure. But the fact that my family, particularly my late father, was a former political prisoner, I was very focused on the Tibetan freedom movement, and that actually got me into politics. Because I felt that the exile establishment, we needed to focus more on Tibetan freedom movement, particularly the Tibetan independence movement, Rangzin movement. And for us, in 2016, it was an opportunity to raise the issue of Rangzin, Tibetan independence. So we seized the opportunity, and I happened to win the election, and it's my second term, and that's how I got in politics.
And so you were born in India, correct?
Yes,
And
I was.
you've never been to Tibet proper.
I've never been to Tibet.
So there is a weird situation right now where the only person in this room who has been to Tibet is Matt.
Oh, wow.
I didn't think about it that way until you just said that.
Yeah, I mean that's awful that you as a
True.
Tibetan with this identity can't go back.
It's sad. It's heartbreaking in a way, because there is not a single moment when I do not want to go back to our fatherland, Tibet. But I know that the fact that I'm active in politics, especially in Tibetan freedom movement, there's no way I cannot go back to Tibet until Tibet is free. So here I go.
Well, even if you were able to go back, based on my experience, it would also be heartbreaking. My experience in Lhasa was just the way that it's been taken over by sort of Chinese money, and the sort of part of Lhasa has become like this cheap third-tier Chinese city with the grocery stores and karaoke bars and that do more than karaoke, and the way that the Jokang Temple has been infiltrated by Chinese spies. I mean, it's very sad.
Now, Matt, you say that, but Tibet, Lhasa in particular, is consistently ranked as one of the happiest places in China, according to Chinese state-run media.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say. My lived experience must be wrong. Obviously, it's heartbreaking whether you're in Tibet or not in Tibet. What I find really interesting about the Tibetan government in exile is this government started was 1959, right? 1960. So right after
Yes.
the Dalai Lama had fled and all that. So you've been able to keep this government in exile going for 60 plus years.
True.
That's incredible. I mean, that's who else has been able to do that?
I agree. I completely agree. And on that regards, I entirely always give credit to His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and his leadership and his magnanimity of how he was able to, not just politically, but emotionally keep the Tibetans connected to the freedom movement and to our exile establishment, exile Tibetan government in exile, so for us to realize that, it's crucial. It's a biggest example, biggest connection we can give to a free Tibet. And this is how, for us, as I told you, growing up, we were told that, we have our role and responsibility towards it. And this is how I think even the future generation, my children will hear the same thing from me. So I think this is how we were able to continue, and we will be able to continue until we are back to a free Tibet.
I guess that is one of the big differences between the Tibetan community in exile versus the Uyghurs or Hong Kongers, that you have this central figure that can be a unifying factor in a global community.
Absolutely. I think that is something that the Uyghur communities and the Hong Kongers are able to recognize, and they would always keep mentioning that. But I always mention that there's always a lost side to it. Because of the fact that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has always been kind of considered a synonymous figure to Tibet as a movement and as a figure, people are now talking about post-Dalai Lama. People are talking about, okay, what will happen to Tibet? Because he's getting older, right? So for us, we're trying to send out a message that, okay, His Holiness is getting older for sure, and we are very worried. But we have a promise from him that he will live long, but more importantly, a lesson and education from him that all of us, each one of the Tibetan, have a responsibility, and we have a democratic establishment, democratic leadership elected by the people. and this is how we will take decision for the future of Tibet. And that confidence has brought us up. So there is always, two sides on the same coin. So that's there for sure.
So
Yeah, I mean, the Dalai Lama a number of years ago stepped down as the head of government of the
Right.
Tibet government in exile. Was that a difficult transition to make? Were people, was there a controversy around his decision to do that?
Absolutely. It was in 2001 when he initially said that he will not entirely, but in a way begin the election of the political leadership. So that was a big transition in itself. But in 2011, after the election of the former Sikyong, who stood for the election as Kalyon Thepa, when His Holiness announced that he will be political leader, it was a big, shock for many people. They were stunned. They were uncomfortable because our community had been very in this comfort zone that, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama is there. And for us to believe that he is a symbolic gesture or sign of the Lord Avalokiteshvara. So, faith always kept us together, right? So the fact that he has informed the people that, no, he will step down from his political role and it will be one of us, like common people, will, head the political movement. So it was a very difficult decision. In fact, that time, the parliament in itself requested His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama to take the decision back. But His Holiness announced it very categorically that, no, it is a big decision that he has made for the future of Tibet, that this longest period, centuries of Gandhen Photang, that's his Dalai Lama's establishment, that he's announced that he'll stop that, and then it will lead to a new government, democratic government in exile. So that's why the whole, for us to have this amount of respect for him as a visionary, as a true, how do I say, Democrat, and this faith in his people. I think that has always been our strength. So the initial stage was certainly very difficult. I wouldn't say it's perfect right now. It's certainly not. With democracies comes different opinion and that discomfort that always makes people question ourselves. So it is certainly difficult, but then we know that, it was a very strong, important decision that he's taken as a visionary.
So for our viewers who don't understand the nuances of this, there are different types of governments out there. And when it comes to those with a single leader, or monarchies, you could say, there's hereditary ones like the United Kingdom, and there's elected ones. I can only think of the Vatican as that example. But the Dalai Lama system is a totally different thing than anywhere else in the world. Can you explain how that's worked for the last several hundred years?
So who we have at the moment is the 14th Dalai Lama. So we've had so far 14 reincarnation of that individual who had been our political head, especially from the 5th Dalai Lama, who had been the strongest leader. So beginning from him to the 14th Dalai Lama, the Tibetan being a very Buddhist community, we believe that, he's somebody who's sent for us to turn our, I can't even say that, kind of Shambhala into this peace and prosperity. And this is how we looked into it. And then that he would come back to serve the people and to bring peace and happiness in our lives, So this is how we saw it. And so far it's been 14 lives. And we believe that he will come back, that there will be a reincarnation, because that is a very important topic in itself, where even though it's an entirely religious matter for the Chinese Communist Party and its leadership, it's certainly not. It's a political matter, and they've already announced on several occasions and platforms that, he will be recognized by the Chinese Communist Party. So this atheist government is more than happy to elect the next appoint the next Dalai Lama. So it's a very interesting twist into the whole very Buddhist ritualistic system that Tibetans have very uniquely built over many, many generations.
So it's my understanding. So it's the Dalai Lama. It's the same person who's been the monarch for hundreds of years, but just in different lifetimes.
Yes.
And then every time he passes away, there's a period of time, and then a child is born who's then recognized as being him.
Yes.
So who recognizes that this boy is the same Dalai Lama that should, eventually take power when he comes of age.
So it's usually the institution itself, the Dalai Lama institution. The previous Dalai Lama would leave signs and symbols which would enable the institution to recognize the future Dalai Lama. But one thing that we have noticed over several generations is how the Panchen Lama had been a figure who kind of formally recognized the Dalai Lama. So hence another politics comes in, because Panchen Lama, the 10th Panchen Lama, a young child of 6-year-old who was recognized by the Dalai Lama as the new Panchen Lama, he was annexed. This young boy of 6-year-old is he's vanished with his family, his teacher, because he could have been a very crucial, fundamental individual who could impact the future Dalai Lama. So there's so much going on in the whole reincarnation, very religious process, where the Chinese Communist Party recognized the politics behind it, the power struggle behind it that could impact their authority in coming future. So there's so much going on. Because Tibetans, as Buddhists, we believe in reincarnation system. We believe that we as individuals do not end with this life. I will come back in different body, not necessarily human body, but I will come back. So this is how we believe, and this is how we believe that the system goes on in the world.